This is Mark Forsyth, and welcome to Leading at a Higher Level. The purpose of this show is to have thought provoking business leaders on Nantucket share how they lead their organizations to a higher level. We are kicking off this new season with Scott Blanchard. Scott's one of the owners of our company, the Ken Blanchard Companies. Scott and I literally grew up in the leadership development business. As kids, our dads were professors of organizational development at UMass Amherst. And now we both work with organizations around the world that want to develop world-class leaders. So, Scott, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Mark, for having me.
So, this is the kickoff show to our new season, and we want to frame the season for our listeners. So, when we talk about leading at a higher level, Scott, what does that mean for today's leaders and the organizations that they run?
Leading at a higher level is really pretty simple, Mark. It's how do you run your business or you run your organization intentionally so you achieve what's now become known to as the quad bottom line, which is how do you create an organization, that's achieving superior financial results or outcomes if it's a not-for-profit. The second is it's creating a superior employment experience, and really measured by the employee brand, which is what's the employment brand that your company is going after and is delivering. The third is that the organization is really creating devoted customers. And so the customers are really holding up the organization as an exceptional company, delivering great service, great value, great products and services. The fourth really important bottom line for an organization is really about your organization being perceived and acting like they are a steward of our local community, our national community, our global community, meaning that our organization is not only conducting business and making a profit and delivering great service and really creating a great environment for people, but is actually contributing to the greater whole, and certainly not doing things that are taking away from or destroying our larger environment or our larger communities. So the quad bottom line is really key. And so leading at a higher level is running an organization that is specifically designed to achieving success in those four arenas.
That's great. And one of the key elements to get all of that oriented is having a clear vision. So when you see organizations rally around an aligned vision, with some of the world-class organizations that you get to work with, Scott, what do you see? What does that look like?
From the research and also from our experience, first of all, vision is fundamental and critical to any organization because a vision provides really the long-term direction for the organization. And a vision needs to accomplish a couple of really important things. The first thing, it needs to be clear. So people need to understand through reading the vision and hearing the vision from its leaders and employees and managers, where exactly is the organization headed? And the second thing is it needs to create meaning, and people need to care about it. It needs to create meaning internally. The customers need to care about it. It needs to create meaning, on Wall Street or the other people that are really looking at the business as a financial investment. And it also needs to create meaning and purpose in the larger community that the organization operates within. So the vision needs to lay all those different components out. And what's interesting is when you really are leading at a higher level, the vision becomes not only the focal point, but the vision is the one thing that the leaders, even the senior leaders, are really held accountable to delivering. So nobody is above the vision in organizations that are leading at a higher level.
So how do leaders that are leading organizations, directed to this quad bottom line, how do they disseminate between the strategic, orientation of their jobs, which is, as you just said, kind of setting that vision versus the management side of the business?
So there's two kinds of leadership that exist in organizations. I was down working with a client this morning. They're a large restaurant company that's also a brewery. And when we were working with them, in their strategic planning and their vision, I talked about the difference between strategic leadership and operational leadership. And everybody on that leadership team that I was working with today, they have an operational responsibility. So their day job is to behave like operational leaders. And what they're really trying to do is lead the part of their business that they're responsible for to create superior results and also to create an environment which causes people to feel deeply committed to their work and to working together and to the organization. So operational leadership is really key. What strategic leadership does is strategic leadership clarifies three or four really important things. One is the vision. Where's the company headed and why does it matter? It clarifies the purpose of the company. Why do we fundamentally exist? Strategic leadership messages also communicate the kind of culture that we're trying to create and that we're insisting on people really working within. Uh, Jim Collins was one of the ones that famously talked about that is, you got to get everybody on the bus, but the culture really determines how are people going to behave while they're on the bus working with each other. And the vision really directs the bus in the right direction. Where are we headed? And so strategic leadership really, really needs to clarify culture and values, which is like a code of conduct, how we're going to work together. And then the other big piece that's kind of completes the job for strategic leadership is to regularly kind of refine and create short to medium term strategic imperatives, which really begin to focus the company over the short to medium term. Like, what are the things that we're working on in this business cycle, maybe into next year or the year after, that are going to help us make the greatest progress towards the vision that we have? Because the vision is really long term, and the strategic imperatives are more something that's really just in front of us. Now, what happens if the strategic leadership messages are clear? One thing I talk about all the time is that they have to be crayon simple as well. They need to be written like in the 8th grade reading level. They need to be written in a way that people can understand them, they can memorize them, they can share them with other people. So strategic leadership messages have to be simple and clear. And what they do if they're delivered effectively is they actually animate and provide drive and purpose to the operational leadership. And so what we see in great companies is the quality and the commitment to the strategic leadership messages. They actually create a more informed, aligned, and capable manager in whatever their unit is, that then is turning around to their people and helping drive those people towards leading at a higher level, working at a higher level, and making sure that the work we're doing not only meets standard, but it also is helping us meet these larger purposes of a company that's really financially sound. The customers love us. The employment experience is great, and we are seen as doing really positive things in our local communities and in the greater environment, really.
That's great. So really, you're when you're leading at a higher level, at a strategic sense, the vision has to be relevant, but in an operational context, it has to be well known throughout the organization. That's great. So this is Mark Forsyth, and you're listening to Leading at a Higher Level. And today we're joined by Scott Blanchard, who is the Ken Blanchard Company's Chief Customer Officer. So Scott, when you're talking to our clients around the world, and in the context of treating their people right, what do you see out there? How do you see how do you see a motivated, workforce that embraces the quad bottom line?
So that's a great question, and we've just like some of the other things I mentioned, we've done a lot of research around this, and we've also had a lot of experience over the years on what is the formula to create an environment where people are really feeling like they're treated right. And the fundamental promise is if we treat our people right, then what are they going to do? They're going to work harder for us. They're going to take care of the customers more effectively. They're going to be honest. They're going to be caring. They're going to be collaborative. And so, treating your people right is really designed to get people to work as effectively and collaboratively as possible. So when people come to work, there's 4 things that are fundamental to people at work. One of them is, who is the company that they're working for, and what are the perceptions that they have about the very firm they're working for. And so people want to work for a firm that's winning. They want to work for an organization that's creating great economic value. They want to participate in that. They want to work for a company that's taking care of its customers. And they want to work for a company that's a good steward, within its local and its larger community. So the first thing is what's my opinion about the company that I'm working for? And that's really important, because when people work for a company that they're proud of, then they're much more likely to work hard on the company's behalf, and they're much more likely to endorse the company and its leaders to other people. The second piece is, who is their direct manager, or supervisor, because it's really important that people work for a manager that is well prepared and is helping them win at work. They're providing them with the tools and resources so that they can succeed in what they're asked to do on a daily basis. And they're also helping them solve the challenges that ultimately show up. So, really important. And people basically put managers into two categories: managers that we call this, more technically, other serving leaders, but they're really leaders that they trust and that they feel have their back. The other category of managers that you have to desperately avoid are people that are working for self-oriented, self-serving managers, or managers that they don't trust, and they feel like the manager's there more for their own gain than there to help people really succeed. And so it's really, really deadly when companies put managers in place that people perceive to be self-oriented. And then the third thing is people want to have work for a manager who is prepared. And when we say prepared, we mean that they have skills, that they understand how to set goals in a conversational manner, how to help people continue on paths that are effective, like how to praise their behavior, how to manage people that have gone off track and get them back onto track in a way it's respectful and direct, but also really effective, and managers that are interested in creating, long-term productive relationship with people. So really, really key. Another thing that's really critical is the relationship that people have with their coworkers. And people hold their manager and the organization both accountable for cooperation, collegiality, and really safety between coworkers. Because, we spend a lot of time working for our manager, but we spend even more time working with our coworkers. And people get really, stressed out when they're working for people that have different levels of performance and standards that they might have, or really bad is if there's a bully at work or somebody that's kind of behaving in a way that makes them feel safe or really uncomfortable. So the collegiality or the relationship with people really matters. And then the last thing is the job. Are people doing a job that they know to be meaningful? Is the job set up in a way that it's not completely boring, that there's some degree of task variety? Are tasks and responsibilities reasonably fairly distributed? Or do people feel like they're pulling more than their fair share? And then is the work inherently either interesting or useful or valuable for people? So the job, really matters. And what's interesting is people can look at the same job and they can have completely different perceptions of it. But so the treating your people right thing, Mark, is a little complicated, but at the same time, it's straightforward, is that it's the opinion that I have of the company I work for, the manager I'm working for, the people that I'm working for, and then really my opinion and my affinity with the job itself.
Well, that's great. This is really good stuff. This is Leading at a Higher Level, Nantucket, and today we're joined by Scott Blanchard from the Ken Blanchard Companies. In the realm of treating your people right, you're right. The manager direct report relationship is key. What do bad managers cost organizations, and how does that affect the quad bottom line of leading at a higher level organizations?
Bad management is incredibly damaging to companies. And what's interesting is most businesses have no idea the damage that their managers are oftentimes doing to their people and to their teams and to their customers. And so, in the bad manager category, there's some people that are just, bad people, and they shouldn't be managing people that have black hearts, and they're just not really realize that they're in service. And so, there are some people that fall into that category. But most of the time, Mark, what we see are people that are just unprepared to be effective managers. They had not been given the skills and the training and really the help to understand what is management fundamentally about and how do you do it properly. Because the job of management fundamentally is to prepare people to work as autonomously as possible to create the results that you need in such a way that they can eventually be, kind of self-managing. And so the path is to lead people to be as autonomous as possible. And a lot of managers feel like their job is to act more like cops, or police, or I'm in the judgment business, and I'm here to hold people accountable. And that's really not the case. If you want to pay people just to be responsive to that kind of management, you're wasting so much time, because most people have a lot more to bring to the game than they're able to bring to their jobs when they're working for poor managers. And so, in some companies, we've estimated that these poor managers are costing companies millions on millions of dollars worth of lost productivity through people leaving the business, higher attrition rates, to things like inefficiency and sabotage and shrinkage and those sort of things beginning to happen. So rest assured that if you're putting bad managers in place, or if you're just not preparing your managers, then what you're doing is you're probably creating an environment which is causing people to not nearly perform to their full potential.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, now we have a multi-generational workforce, and you've got people, regardless of their generation and their age, managing, people for the first time. What are some of the skills that you want managers to be able to embrace and excel at when they're got their first management job?
We really talk about mindset, and skill set. And in my mind, the first and most important thing to teach and to scale within your management is mindset. And mindset at leading at a higher level is really, what is my fundamental job as a manager? What am I supposed to be creating in terms of outcomes? And I'll give you a simple example. One of the things that we teach to our frontline managers, and this came from an experience that I had um, back in the 80s when I had my first management position, and I worked for a guy named Francisco Wheelock. And what Francisco said, and just to give you a little setting, I was working in a huge hotel, and I was in the dishwashing department called the steward department, and we were managing 200 dishwashers, huge hotel. And what Francisco said to me, he took me to lunch the first day. He goes, Scott, I need you to be very careful this summer when you're working with people, because if you don't treat people well during the day, it's going to end up as dinner conversation in their homes this evening.
Yeah.
Right. And he goes, I don't want people talking about work at night. I don't want them talking about you. I don't want talking about the way that you treated them. I don't want them talking about me. Your job is to not be dinner table conversation. And so really one of the main jobs, and we teach this to first line managers, is, hey, your job is to help and not hurt, and to get people focused on what needs to be accomplished, and find a way for them to feel engaged and committed, to what matters and to what they're doing. But your job is not to actually, create an environment where people feel punished or beat up, or devalued. Stay away from the dinner time, conversations. So the mindset is really important, and ultimately, managers are there to serve and to help people achieve success. The old framework, like when I back in the 70s or 80s or even the 90s, is a lot of managers believed that their people were there to serve them, and they're the manager. And really, what's true is that the manager is there to support and serve the people, because what we're really trying to do is get people to be as autonomous and productive as possible. So we teach them that mindset, and then from a skill set, we teach them communication and management skills that many people don't have. We teach managers how to listen much better, much more effectively, to listen profoundly, to listen to what's being said, but also to listen to what's not being said, to listen for disconnects, listen for values. And then when they open their mouths and when they start talking to people, we teach them to ask questions that open up dialogue. And most of those questions start with what? What are you trying to accomplish? What happened in that situation that looked like it was a little bit rough? What would you do if you could do that again? What were you hoping to create out of that interaction with the client? And so we teach managers explicitly to stop interrogating and asking why. And also with young managers, Mark, we teach them how to tell the truth, how to take a position, and how to share their thinking, because a lot of young managers really are not fully equipped to actually do the management part of management, which is to set expectations, hold people and teams accountable to results, and really coordinate, organize, and focus individuals and teams to produce results. So those are really the biggies. So a lot of it is our generic skills, but a really powerful mindset too about being in service to people as their manager.
That's great stuff. So for organizations that want to lead at a higher level, they have to treat their people right. And that certainly starts with the manager. And the manager sets the culture for excellent internal customer service, which then sets the table for outstanding service to the external customers. So What are world-class organizations doing to ensure outstanding service is a top priority? Because that is one of the key tenets of the quad bottom line for organizations that want to lead at a higher level. What are you seeing out there?
There's four things that really matter to customers. The first one is really the products and services that you're selling and delivering. And so companies that succeed over time, they have to have a really solid set of products and services. You don't necessarily have to have world-class products, world-class services in every case, but you need to be darn good and you need to be improving and you need to be working on your products. So that's a really key component. But the second thing the customers want is they want consistency. They want consistency across experiences. They want consistencies across your business. They want consistency from time to time. And so, if the level of quality of service or even the product that I'm coming to you for depends on who's on duty that day or who I'm dealing with, it's a problem. Whether it be a restaurant or a retail operation or even a manufacturing organization, people want and they need consistency. And then the third thing is people want practices and pricing that they can understand and that is easy to understand. People don't want to be complicated. Southwest Airlines has done so much out west with simplifying the experience and causing people to feel like these are practices that I can support and I understand. They don't charge for the first two bags, and they don't charge you if you have to change your ticket. And so there's just a couple things that really create a completely different environment because people feel like their business practices are easy to do business with. The Southwest website is easy to use compared to some of the other airlines that I won't mention. So people want to have a business that's easy to do business with, and in many cases, businesses they're confusing and or they have like hidden costs or hidden dynamics that people just hate. So easy to do business with is huge. And then the fourth thing that people are really looking for is the people that they interact with. They're looking for brand evangelists. And so I learned this term from a guy that I love named John DeJulius. He's I think the best guy in the world in customer service. And John says brand evangelism is so key, and it really has two pieces. And the first piece around a brand evangelist is people love what they're doing. Right? It doesn't matter what you're doing, but they love what they're doing, and people can sense that people love what they're doing. And then the second thing is, do people love who they're doing it for? Do they love the organization that they're working for? Because when those two things come across, then what that does is that creates a magnetic experience that lowers people's barriers and their concerns and causes people to see that brand as really, really great. And so what treating your customers right is all about is understanding you have to have the right products and services in place. You have to be consistent across all channels and all experiences. You really need to have easy to do business with practices. And the customers will tell you if what you're doing doesn't make sense or if it's not fair or if you're nickel and diming them. And then the last thing is they really want to have people that are brand evangelists working for the companies that they're doing business with.
That's great. Well, thank you, Scott. And we are out of time, but I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show and really helping our listeners think about what it takes to lead their organizations at a higher level. You've really framed that very clearly, and I appreciate you being on the show. So thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Mark. Have a great day.
Great. So this is Leading at a Higher Level in Nantucket, and we'll see you next week.